I want you to raise your hand if you have been directly affected by a family member or a friend by Alzheimer's or dementia. Raise your hand. Guys, look around. Everybody. It has touched all of us. This is such an important conversation. Shannon, come on. You guys are lucky because Shannon is your moderator today. Every time Shannon moderates for us, we get raving reviews. She's fantastic. No pressure.
Well, now, yeah, no pressure today. Let me tell you why. Because we're in the presence of my newfound TV expert.
I know what I'm nodding yes.
So, how many of you saw the episode on Channel 9 Saturday? Oh, see, and you know who I'm talking about. We have two. So I brought this book, and because you've got to get signatures from people who are famous, so you don't forget, right? So I dug it out of my cabinet in the house, and I'm going to get two today. I'm really excited, and I'll put their pictures in here too. So that's why we can know. I knew them when they first started their TV exposure, and they did an amazing job of it. If you saw them, they did a great job.
Well, Shannon and I work together as real estate agents. We get to office together. And she gets my signature a lot on campers, so I'm not giving you another one.
Maybe kind of good at church by now. You never know.
Well, with that, I'll let you know.
Yeah, thank you. Guys, thank you so much for letting me come up here today. I've written 3 openings today. I've thrown 3 of them away. And it's because I don't have a lot to say about this. I am probably as excited as each of you are about being the moderator for this topic because I have the best panel. 2 of them I've had the honor of being on the panel with before, several years ago. The other 2 are first time here at Senior Living True Series, and their level of education, knowledge, experience is just phenomenal. So I just get to be the lucky audience member who gets to sit on stage today and hopefully ask some good questions. What I will ask each of you though is how many of you have, and I'm not going to tell you it's the last time I'm going to ask you to raise your hand because I'll probably do it half a dozen times when the mood strikes me, but how many of you have checklists? We have checklists. I have 2. Sometimes I have 3. But that being said, we've given you a checklist in front of you that you can make your own. That means that's your note page. So as you think of questions that these guys are talking about today, or if you came in with a question, something that drove you here today that you want to make sure you learn, it's really important to you, I'm going to ask that you write that down now. And if we don't answer that question for you in our conversation, we're going to have a really good Q&A session at the end. This way you don't forget it or it doesn't slip your mind because we're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. But please take a moment and write that down. And while you're doing that, I'm going to invite our panelists up. First, we have Dr. Odenheimer. She is a neurologist, retired. And then we have Herb Magley, who is part of the Oklahoma Alzheimer's Association. You all know Herb. Herb's here every month. We all know Herb. And he is the second famous person that we know today because he was on Channel 9 with Becky. They both did an amazing job. Third, we have Carla Skull. She is with Concordia Life Care Community. She is here as our resident expert with memory care and assisted living. And she also was part of Alzheimer's Association at one point. And then last but definitely not least, we have Tiffany Thomas, who is a co-owner with Welcome Home Adult Daycare. I'm really excited about all of us learning more about adult daycare that is available here in Oklahoma City. I think it's respite care that we often forget or may not know much about. So Tiffany is here to be able to share that with us. Now, on that note, we're going to get started. Good morning. You guys all ready? And look, Carla's so professional, she got a clip. Yeah.
With my hands.
So see, we knew that you needed that. Okay, so good morning, guys. So Dr. O, I'm going to have you start. Will you please introduce yourself and share your experience with dealing with dementia?
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So I am a neurologist and a geriatrician, both trainings. And I have spent 30 plus years of my career taking care of people with dementia and their families. the package deal. Unfortunately, it takes a long time, and so the way medicine is going these days, they don't want you to spend. That's why I'm retired. So anyway, but I'm still involved. So I focused on dementia my whole career, and then when my mother turned 88, she started to dement. And I said to my siblings, something's wrong with Mom. They said, you think everybody's got Alzheimer's? I go, no, I don't think that. I think something's wrong with Mom. And they would not believe me for a couple of years until it became very evident, evident by the fact that she didn't remember anything. She called my brother. She was living at that time in Lake Charles, but was living in New Orleans at the time of Katrina. And a friend of my brother's drove her out of New Orleans to Lake Charles. She packed an overnight bag and never went. So that was pretty traumatic, and she was already showing some signs of decline. So I would go down there to Lake Charles regularly to check on Mom, and there'd be rotten food in the refrigerator, and she'd be out of toilet paper, and I'd say to my brother, you know, are you keeping an eye on this? And he was mad at me because he resented that I wasn't the one who was responsible all the time, which I get. But so I would go down with food and toilet paper, and then I got involved in Alzheimer's support groups through Herb, famous Herb. When I was teaching at the medical school, so I ran the curriculum for geriatrics at the medical school here in Oklahoma City. And I started to bring my students to the support groups. They would come to two support groups. One was for a caregiver, and one was for people who were suffering with some sort of dementia. And then they had to write essays about it. They hated me for that. But I have some amazing essays that they wrote. I still have them. So anyway, I really connected with the group through lots of different ways, and now that I'm retired, I am very involved in lots of community advocacy and things like that.
Well, thank you. We're so glad you're here. Herb, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, well, I'm Herb Magley, and my wife developed, one of the first ones in our both family units, developed the symptoms of Alzheimer's when she was 52 years old, and we went on a 13-year journey. And most of the way through that journey, I realized that there was another victim in this, and that's the caregiver. And so I decided that I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to trying to help people get through this. I lead 5 support groups here in Oklahoma City. Louder?
Yes. Yes.
Is that better? I keep forgetting that you have to eat these things. But so anyway, I lead 5 support groups here, and I got to tell you that there are some days when I get done with the support group, I go sit in my car and cry. And it has nothing to do with what I went through or what my wife went through. It's what these caregivers are going through. So they're an amazing group of people. I do advocacy work I'm on the Oklahoma chapter board for the Alzheimer's Association. And I do rock shows without the Beatles, sticks, or stones. Because I'm a geologist, so I was going to do 4 or 5 of these shows. I've done over 200 shows at senior centers, independent living, assisted living, and even memory care. With memory care, the biggest challenge there is, as Terry knows, she helps me, is keeping them from eating the rocks. So anyway, that's my story.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm on this because I agreed to be on this because there were going to be 4 women and me.
He did enjoy the picture before we got started this morning, yes. So we know what motivates. Okay, Carla, introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's just lovely to be here and lovely to see all your faces. I see some people I've known for a long time. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Carla, and I work at Concordia. I do sales and marketing for assisted living and memory care. I'm also a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. I used to work for the Alzheimer's Association. And I was very, this was one of those moments, you know. I saw a lady. She came to a community that I was at, and she gave a speech. And I was mesmerized. I was hooked. I wanted to be her. Her name was Diane Wood, and she is marvelous. And she just was great. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So I waited until the job opening came, and she hired me, and it was just, I loved it. I got to go all around the state trying to educate people about this horrible disease, and as we know, there is no magic. There's just things to keep trying, and so that's how I got involved with the Alzheimer's Association. And I'm so thankful that they still let me volunteer with them. So I go around doing presentations every once in a while here in Oklahoma City mainly. It's been, I gotta be honest with you guys. Everything I know comes from either Dr. O or her. So really, it's going to be redundant because they can answer anything that I can answer. That's all my knowledge comes from these two, so I'm so fortunate to be in their company. But I hope you guys enjoy today and give us some good questions.
Okay. Ms. Tiffany, introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Thomas. I'm with Welcome Home Adult Daycare. We have a current location in Southwest Oklahoma City, and we are in the construction phase of opening a second location, actually just right down the street. But we have two sides to our business. One is for young adults with all types of developmental disabilities. And then we have another side that caters towards seniors with Alzheimer's, dementia, things of that nature. And we are really kind of a transitional phase of care between seniors that are able to live at home independently and then needing a nursing facility or something like that. We are more of a transitional phase in the middle. So we've been in business for 18 years caring for clients with dementia in that capacity.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Welcome. We're glad you're here. So Dr. O, we're going to start with you. So one of the big questions I think a lot of us have consistently, because it looks different, we all have different experiences, is what are some of the key signs that memory challenges may begin to affect someone's ability to safely remain at home or just daily interaction? What does that look like? What are some of those key things that we should be looking for?
Well, first of all, like with my mother, rotten food in the refrigerator was certainly a clue that something's wrong. She was always a great cook. Her cooking skills really deteriorated, which was, everybody was like, what's happening, So skills, memories, and skills, to me, I think the most important sign that people, it's not on the lists of what's on the list, is losing skills that you were good at. So my mom was a fabulous cook, fabulous organizer, entertainer, and those skills really deteriorated. So when I saw patients, I always wanted to know, what is it you can't do now that you could do a couple years ago? And if they used to fix the car, and now the car is in pieces, or they, things like that. So memory and the ability to put things together in sequence are really important. It's important for a job. So when I would see people who were working, if the workplace was supportive, they would find easier and easier jobs for a person, or they would hire them, or they would wait for a lawsuit, because I would take care of people like attorneys who were deteriorating, or I had one patient who he designed bridges. I would not want to go on one of those bridges. So you don't think about the long-term implications of this, but it could impact us driving. It impacts driving safety. I think I'll stop.
Okay, those are good. I like that you said things that they were good at. So somebody who historically, just say most of their lives, lost their keys. But when they start losing it more often, that's not necessarily a sign of memory loss, but sometimes that's what adult children will call out is, I had to find mom's phone 5 times. Well, has your mother always lost things? Well, yes, she's always lost things. Well, that's not a new behavior. She may just be getting really good at that behavior then, right? And not getting worse at it. So what are some of the things that you've seen that are issues or things that people should be aware of that affect people to be able to safely stay at home?
Yeah, there's several things. First of all, there are dangerous things at home. There are people that don't know how to use them. When they've forgotten how to use a stove, when they've forgotten how to use a microwave, my wife put a thing in the microwave that was supposed to be there for 2.5 minutes, and she put it for 25. Fortunately, my daughter was there when the fire started. They just don't know any better than that. It's the same thing with an oven, or the same thing with anything dangerous. But probably the thing that I hear most of in the support groups is wandering. If you're not watching them all the time, if you don't have some sort of a warning system in your house, they're going to get out eventually. And people will tell you, well, my loved one doesn't wander. They don't wander until the day they wander, and they will wander. So that is dangerous. You got to have some sort of a method of knowing when the person is leaving the house.
Is there signs, Herb, that give you indication as a caregiver, a spouse, a loved one, and that you would want to know to start paying attention for wandering? Or does it just happen one day? And I know it can be either or, but I don't know, is there any signs out there that you've heard people said that in hindsight, I should have paid attention and saw these skills or these things happen?
I really haven't, and the problem is that most of us are in denial. And so we don't want to see it, so we don't see it. There are some signs, a lot of people would have disease, they'll sit in a chair all day if you let them watch TV or something like that. But, with my wife, it was just one day, I never expected anything out of it. Now all of a sudden my neighbor calls up and says, your wife's in my house. And I had to go get her, and I didn't understand what was going on. So this has been a process for me too over the last, 12, 15 years of realizing what information I can give to people in support groups is so to watch out for.
Okay, very good. Carla, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, one of the other things that we need to be aware of, all of us, when we're caring for somebody older, but especially if they have some type of dementia, is, there's some bad guys out there. And, you got to be aware of those offerings in the mail or the phone calls that they get, asking for everything, or the knock on the door. You have to be aware of these things. I mean, who was it that we knew that paid for everybody on the street to have their yard cut, and they're like, hang on, what? When their family got home. So you just have to be aware that these things can happen. The bad guys, they know what they're doing. They know who to target. They know how to target. So we just have to be aware of that and put those safety measures in place again, just as we all know, don't answer the phone. If you don't know the number, don't answer it. And teach that to your loved one. And if they are beyond that ability to remember that, then, measures have to be taken. Maybe disable the phone, or maybe only you can call in. There's some things that you can do to keep everybody safe. So that's just what I read.
Well, and it's something as simple as we teach our kids not to answer the door if you don't know who's there, right? Someone knocks on the door, you don't know who, don't answer it. As an adult, we answer the door. We don't think we're afraid. Well, I can tell you, as an example, we've had 2 clients that their parents opened the door to solar panel salespeople. They were not going to be in their house for more than 6 months because they had memory care issues. They had physical issues, and they were sold solar panels that were going to be good for the next 50 years on their house, and they would save money on their taxes for the next 25 years or whatever the scheme is. And they got took. And it's because they opened the door and they bought the sales pitch. So be aware that we have to kind of go back to basics sometimes, that if you don't know who's at the door, don't answer it. Okay, very good. Good. That's a good one. Tiffany. Yeah, absolutely.
My mom got, took, as far as we know, for about $400,000 through a financial company that was selling her stocks regularly, and every time they would sell it, they would make money. And we had a hard time getting her to believe us that they were taking advantage. She said, "Oh no, they care about me. They call me every day."
Very good. Tiffany, anything else you'd like to add? What some of the things?
Kind of piggyback on what Herb said, whenever new clients come into our facilities or new families are reaching out for help, it's normally because, as he mentioned, their loved ones will start wondering and that becomes scary. But something else that we often see is that whenever they have gone to extreme measures to put procedures into place for them to be able to keep up with their medications on their own, and that's just no longer happening. That can just be really detrimental, even more so for their mental capacity, and so we start seeing people come in that regard.
So we talked a little bit about wandering and staying in the house or things to look for. I know as a real estate professional, we go in homes and we see a lot of accommodations that families make for their families to live longer or to stay in their house longer. It's amazing how many locks you can put on the door to keep somebody in, not out. And people often wonder, what is this? And when I see it, I now know what that means, that they're trying to keep a loved one in the house. And it's not a toddler, because the locks are not down here, they're at the top, where you have to have a step stool to get to it. Are there things, because at some point that probably was helpful, that probably did help extend that person being able to live in the house longer, if the only issue they had was potentially wandering. Are there some other things that you guys have heard that would help people plan for the future, for them to be able to age in place and to be safe at home? And really, it can be support groups. What are some of the tools that you're seeing that families use? Dr. O?
Yeah, well, medication is a big issue, and probably the earliest things I see that families notice is that they're not taking their medicines properly. They're either overtaking them or undertaking them, and they swear they're taking them right. So when I would see them, I would say, we need a more secure way for you to take your medicine so we know you're getting it when you need it. And I will tag on that I cannot prescribe for you until we know that's in order. And that's sort of an incentive for people to get a pill box and hopefully have the family supervise that.
Okay, very good. Or anything else?
Well, there's a million things, but it's tough on a caregiver to keep track of everything. We had one lady that some of our support groups are in person and call in their video at the same time, so they can, people that have to stay home and can't make it in person. And one of them, we called her Ms. MacGyver. Remember the show MacGyver, he always figured out something. And she had trouble with her husband. He would get up at night and she didn't know he was up. So she went to Lowe's and she bought, there's those posts that you can put in your driveway that when a car drives in, it alerts you. She put one of those on his side of the bed on the wall, so that when he got out of bed at night, it alerted her that he was out of bed. And then she could take care of him. So, there's various things that you can do. There's alarms, and I know I have seen people with the disease defeat some of these things that have been set up for them. So it's like you have to keep a constant supply of things in your head as to what to do. And that's where support groups come into mind, because you're going to be in there, you can say, I'm having trouble with this, and see what the other dozen people in that support group have as an answer. So I would very much recommend that you get involved in a support group if you're dealing with this.
Very good. Carla?
Well, and like with her, with his wife, educate your neighbors. Let your neighbors know what's going on. They can really be helpful to you. They can let you know if you're not there and they see something. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to pretend like we're fine. Because you need help. And your neighbors can sometimes be the best help that you can get. They can keep an eye on your house. They can keep an eye on your loved one. They can let you know if something's going on that's not right. And so it's just a great, this disease has such a stigma attached to it that we tend to not talk about it. We tend to not want to let everybody know what's going on in town. But a really good safety issue is to educate your neighbors, educate your neighborhood, share your phone number, share your email, let them call you, let them text you, let them help you. Don't be ashamed, ask for help. You can't do it by yourself.
I think that's one that if you didn't write that down, you need to write down. Because I think that's an eye-opener that you have to share and educate. So it's not tattling. It's not telling your dirty laundry. It's educating your village. It's those people who are in your neighborhood, those people in your lives, rather than trying to hide it and cover for them. You're educating them, and not just about what they're looking for, but even how to interact with them, I bet. That it's okay. Okay, very good. I love that. Tiffany.
One that I've seen most often recently have just been air tags that families have been slipping in someone's wallet or someone's purse, and they have a GPS tracking device on them if they're out there known to wander. It's just very easy to keep up with them, so long as they remember that wallet or purse every time they leave. But those have been very helpful.
Okay, very good. Okay, so my next question is, we've talked a little bit about aging in place and staying at home, but you get to the extreme where they're outsmarting you, where they're figuring out that the alarm is there and working a way around it. So every time, I guess you kind of feel like you're playing a really tough game of chess. You make a move, and then they make a move, and you make a move, and when you hit the point where the moves, you can't make another move that's going to keep them safe, you begin thinking about communities and adult daycare and things like that, where they have other alternatives. The question comes is, well, they're not going to go tour those, and if I take them in, they're going to leave kicking and screaming. So Tiffany, what do you recommend, or how do you suggest families begin to come tour your company, your place of business? How do they do that?
I always advise families to refer to us as an adult day center, just to get away from the stigma with the adult daycare word. And really our daily activities, we are a senior center, and once we can get people in the door to actually be a fly on the wall for our program for a while, they will see that we're really there for socialization and keeping everybody as active as their abilities will allow at the time, and just kind of engaged in something instead of just sitting at home. It's typically a more productive meeting than if they say, come on, Mom, we're gonna go check out an adult daycare today. That doesn't seem flattering to anyone I know. But again, just kind of referring to more of a senior center and a place you can go socialize seems to be a better way to get them in the door.
You gave an example when we were talking about when somebody brings a loved one in, that often tell them, what does that look like? If I brought my mom in for her to tour the your adult center, the senior center, what would that look like for her? When she walked in, you'd say, this is my mom, and then how does that look like? What does that look like?
Typically, I will sit down with the client and their loved one and just ask questions to kind of get to know that person, get to know what may interest them, get to know what their, professional lives beforehand were like, to try to introduce them to people that I think they get along with and may be able to enjoy socializing with. So then I would take them over to our senior side and let them be a part of the program for a little while, maybe visit, so that hopefully when they return, they'll see some familiar faces and it'll be an easier transition than just popping in for the first time.
Okay, very good. It's a little bit like going back to school. Because it's like, who are you going to sit with at the lunch table, and who do you know, right?
Very
Okay.
much so.
Or
yes.
what do you want to say?
Yeah, one of the biggest events when you're taking somebody in, your loved one into the adult daycare, is how do you make that break? where you leave and they're gonna wanna follow you out. And I'll tell you, one of the best things they did with my wife, I was kind of dumbfounded by it, because that was my big worry the first day. How am I gonna make the separation? When I walked in, one of the staff members came running up, grabbed a hold of my wife's arm and said, "Oh, I love your hair," or "Hey, I love your dress." It was just something that, Gail broke out in a big grin, and they walked off. And the first day, like a bozo, I just stood there with, what was happening? And the gal from the daycare turns around, looks at me, and gives me one of these things, and oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
You got the clue, huh? You got the clue. Okay, very good. Carla, how would you recommend, what are some suggestions you have for families about touring memory care or assisted living?
Well, it's a variety, at Concordia, we see a variety of, scenarios that come in. Sometimes they bring their loved one with them, sometimes it's just the kids, or if they don't have family, sometimes it's good friends that come in and tour. And then maybe they'll come have a look first, see if it's a place that they like, see if it's a place that they think their loved one would like. And then, they're always, you can tour as many times as you want to. And so then they come in and they bring their loved one with them maybe the next time, or maybe they'll come and have lunch with us, have a meal with us, so they can kind of see how the dining room works. They can see how mealtime works. And like you said, it's a little bit like being in school, going to the cafeteria and where on earth do I sit? And the staff is all aware of that and it's very welcoming. So it's kind of a process, a little bit of a slow process to make everybody comfortable. We want to make the family comfortable with what they're seeing and what we're doing. And then we also, of course, want to make the person that they're looking to move in feel comfortable and welcome. And it's just a variety of ways. I don't think there's one set way of how to make this happen. It just depends on the individual, depends on the family, depends on their level of acceptance or denial, where they are in the process of being a caregiver, and having the knowledge to say, I can't do this by myself. That's one thing that Herb taught me a long time ago, and I use it frequently, especially when men come in and we're talking about they've been caring for their wives and they're just tired. They're just very, very tired. And Herb taught me a long time ago that he just wanted to be her husband. So he decided to put his wife into a care community for that reason. He was going to let the professionals do all the stuff. And he just wanted to be her husband again. And you'll have to correct me if I get the story wrong. So then he would just go, every evening, and have maybe a meal with Gail and hold hands and watch TV or listen to music, just whatever. Just let the professionals take care of all that stuff that you've been butting heads over all day long at home. As caregivers, you guys all know that you do two things all day long, right? You're telling them what to do and telling them what not to do. That's what you do all day long. So Herb's advice and Herb's, what he found was let the professionals do that and you be the stop.
So you segue into my next thought is there's sometimes we talked about some of the challenges, and it's always nice when other people tell your stories, isn't it? You really you've made a good impact when someone can tell your story and tell it well, because I think you did a pretty good job. Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the benefits of having this pre-planning or this looking before it's an emergency, looking before your loved one has wandered so far that they're no longer safe in the house and the caregiver is so exhausted they can no longer take care of it, or caregiver gets sick and there's nowhere to go and that person's not safe by themselves. So Dr. O, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the benefits to these conversations and the things that we're talking about for the family, and that they can have these conversations early? What does that look like?
Yeah, I encourage patients and families to talk about this early and to look at facilities early and to get on the wait list, because a good facility is going to have a long wait. A big facility is going to have a long wait list. And so, you want to get your loved one on the list. And then if they call you and say, we have an opening and you're not ready, you just say, I'm not quite ready. So just keep them on the list. And they usually stay at the top of the list. And they'll call you periodically. You know, it's important in terms of legal issues as well. You know, who's gonna make the decisions? Who's the power of attorney? Who, you know, if there's a guardian, that usually requires a judge. Some judges and some lawyers are quick to call people incompetent when they're not, even though they may have a diagnosis. So I fight that fight periodically.
I think, so also, if I'm the person who has dementia, you get to maintain more control if I'm planning and I have more abilities to make those decisions, empowering my family to execute the decisions I've made when the dementia may not be as severe. Is that what you're saying? So if you have those conversations early?
Right. A lot of people don't like filling out the advance directive where it says all the things you would or would want, like intubation or resuscitation or tube feeding or those kind of things. They don't want to do that often. But I say the most important thing you can do is tell me who can speak for you when you can't speak for yourself. And if they aren't able to make that decision, they can no longer assign somebody. So you want them to pick somebody, and that's the most important thing I emphasize with the advance directive is at least pick somebody or a backup person who can speak for you, and then speak to them about what you want.
Very good. Okay, so what are some of the other benefits that we've talked about with this, that planning ahead, I'm sorry, what are some of the other things people can do to plan ahead that when you cross the line or cross the point that safety is an issue, caregiver can no longer take care of their loved one, what are some of the other things you guys suggest or that you've seen? Carla?
Well, see, I didn't lie in the beginning. I'm going to go back to my friend Herb. So, Herb taught us all a long time ago through his stories what he did. And, you know, none of us make a good decision when we're in a crisis. We're gonna pick the closest place. We're gonna pick the one that Aunt Ethel was in. You know, we're gonna do something, and it may not be the right decision. And it's hard to move as we get older, and especially hard to move somebody that might be confused. So, you know, Herb had a plan. He didn't plan on putting his wife into a community, but if and when he ever needed to, he knew exactly where he was going to put her. He did all that pre-planning, hoping he'd never have to use it, but eventually did, and it was a good decision. So, thanks for letting me here.
Herb, what are some of the other things that you've seen with your support groups that you're finding people are planning in those conversations? Who do they involve? Are they involving family members? Is it just a conversation between a husband and wife, or what all does that look like? Or with the doctor?
You know, some of the biggest issues with this are families. People, if they're non-resident, they have their own ideas on what ought to happen, so they need to be involved with it too. I involved all of my kids in what I was gonna do, and the point that I make to all of the caregivers in my support groups is, don't wait until there's a crisis to find a place, because you're not gonna find the place that you want. But if you've got yourself one, you've done that now, and you have your own wait list, yeah, that's the difference between maybe waiting for a week or a month versus waiting for a year. And you can't wait for a year. I know people who have waited until the crisis situation was there, and they ended up moving their loved one 3 or 4 times before they finally got to a place that they liked. So you got to do that. And what I did, you know, there are now outfits that will help with that, free of cost, but when I did it, I was just on my own. I invited Gail's sister down, who worked in a memory care community up in Ohio. And we spent spring break we visited 20 different communities to try to figure out the one. And, did you ever buy a house and go look at 20 houses? I mean, you get done with it and it's like, I'm not sure where I am. But fortunately, her first one was my second one, and my first one was her second one. So we kind of had the two nailed down. So that's what you've got to do to start off with. And when the time came and it was a crisis situation, we were able to get her into one of those two communities. So that's what you got to do. Well, do not want to wait until a crisis hits to find a place for your loved one.
And guys, if you're thinking, okay, well, I know that we have a memory care down the street from us. I know there's one there. But what would I ask? When you walk in, what are the right questions? I wouldn't even know where to start. Well, Carla and her has worked with Herb and the Alzheimer's Association, and you guys have a list of 25 questions, I think, back there on the table. Is that correct? Yes, Herb has it. So it's back on the table next to Concordia, and I'm going to tell you this is a great resource to be able to know what questions to ask. So rather than starting at this end of the curve and learning everything and hopefully going the right way, these questions will give you a jumping off point to know if what you're looking at and a community that you're looking at, if it's good or not just because, I kind of like the carpet and, it's really clean, or that the meals smell good. I mean, that you want to ask deeper questions and know more specifics. That list of questions is an outstanding resource. So please make sure you stop back there and get those. Those are going to be very useful for everybody. So we've been talking about planning, thinking ahead, visiting. I love the wait list. I'm a firm believer of wait lists. Because if you're not ready, that's okay, but you know where you're going. One of the things that Carla had said earlier, and Carla, I'll let you talk a little bit about this. So you have somebody on the wait list and you call them and they say, no, we're not ready. What does that look like for you as a sales director? Because you're the one making those phone calls when you have a bed available or apartment available. What does that look like? Do you throw them off the list when they say no? Is it one and done?
No, and I explained the wait list to them when they decide to get on it, that, I just start making the calls. If we have an apartment available, I'll go to my wait list. The way Concordia is set up is people from independent living get first choice to move into assisted living or memory care. But if nobody in independent living needs an apartment, then I start working with the people that are on what I call the outside wait list. And, so you can say no. It won't kick you off the list. It won't take you down to the bottom of the list. It just keeps you right there. And it just gives me permission to bug you so that I can keep calling you and telling you that we had an apartment available, but you have every right to tell me you're not ready yet, and that doesn't kick you off the list. Just tell me you're not ready yet, and that's fine. And then, and I ask permission, is it okay if I call you again when you have another apartment available? And they always say yes. So it just kind of gives you that, I'm not going to bug you to death. I'm not a sales call. I'm not just going to just keep calling you until you finally say yes. We just kind of have a relationship that we work with. And I get to know the people on the wait list quite well because I call them and they know me and we've had conversations and they know I'm not going to bug them unless I have a reason to bug them, and I know they're not going to be mad at me if I do call them. So it's a good thing, and it's a good list to be on. It's a harmless list to be on, so get on as many as you like. If you like the place, get on their wait list. You can always say no if you're not ready. There's nothing on that wait list that makes you have to move in. It just gives us the opportunity to keep interested, who's the tired case.
And so, Carla, when people are on this wait list and you call them and you kind of have a conversation, so it's not just, hey, Jane, we have a room, we have an apartment, is your loved one ready? No? Okay, good. And you hang up, right? You have a conversation. I bet sometimes they kind of ask you questions, don't they?
Yeah.
I bet they kind of feel like they've almost have their own personal Google when they talk to you, because you're a pretty good resource. And are you finding yourself giving people resources when they tell you this is the new dilemma?
Absolutely. And I'm so thankful that I had my time at the Alzheimer's Association and that I still get to volunteer with them, because it still keeps me in contact with what's out there. And we get to learn about these places that I didn't know about before. And I just love it because sure, well, we're not ready to move her yet. Well, what are some other alternatives? There's home care and there's all that kind of stuff, and there's adult day centers. So I'm just so thankful for that I can share with them, and I don't find that deters from my job at all. I think that if I can be a resource for people, if I can be a trusted resource for people, that just strengthens my relationship with them, whether they move in or not. If they decide not to, that's absolutely fine, but they might say a good word about us going forward to somebody that is ready to move in right now. So just developing that relationship, building that trust so that they know and trust me, so that they know and then will trust our community when it's time to move there.
Okay. So Tiffany, do you guys often have a wait list for your day center?
We do sometimes. It depends on, unfortunately, wait lists in our world. They're kind of determined by what payment source people are on. But we actually just finished, we are opening a new to us senior side on this coming Monday. We've expanded so that we could get rid of our wait list and increase our capacity. So we've increased our licensure. So over the years, yes, we've been on wait lists from time to time, but currently we're not.
Okay. So the same principle, if somebody said no, that doesn't throw them off the wait list. It just puts them back on the wait list because it may not be the right time for them.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Financially, personally, whatever the case may be. Okay. Okay. Very good. So guys, do you hear when you have family members come in emergency situations, they may not have planned. This may be, I'm going to say sudden, and we know that often it's really not sudden. It's something that's been gradual, but all of a sudden there's an emergency and that they need a bed or they need someplace for their loved one to go that's truly safe for them. Do you find that family members and caregivers have heavy guilt about that? Dr. O, you want to talk a little bit about what that guilt looks like and what some conversations you've had with people?
Yeah, guilt is a difficult thing to deal with, but I think Herb has a lot better stuff to say about guilt than I do. I put my mother into a facility, and that was one of the worst days of my life because we basically forced her to go. She was not going to go, and she was not safe at home. So it was a terrible experience.
Okay, Herb, talk to us about this.
Yeah, guilt is probably the toughest thing that we deal with as caregivers, and I certainly felt like it. Carla mentioned when I put my wife into a memory care community, there were probably 6 or 9 months that I hated myself. I said I was never going to do that. I did it. And it wasn't until I realized that I got to be her spouse again. Everybody else at that community was taking care of the things that were wearing me out and killing me, to be honest. Those were all now past, and I got to be the spouse again. I got to go watch TV with her, listen to music with her, sit out in the courtyard and talk to her. She had kind of a strange part of the disease. 2 years into that 13 years, she was no longer able to talk. People thought she was late stage when she was early stage. And that happens to, I think they said 2 or 3% of the people. It depends on what part of the brain gets hit. So I did the talking, but she was still there. She still knew who I was. We could still hold hands. I could still walk with her. And I could joke with her. But I said my goal was to make her laugh every day. And I think I did that most of the time. So anyway, did I answer the question?
Yes, very well, thank you. So you have often there's more than one person involved, right? You not only have the person who can no longer make the decisions safely, but you may have a spouse or a sibling or adult children. How do you have that conversation as professionals with them to help guide them in the correct direction? And that may be aging in place, but how do they set that up? How do you guide them to different resources and what resources are out there when their loved one is ready for that transition to the next level? Tiffany, I'm going to have you start with this because I'd like you to talk about when you have maybe a longtime attendee of the senior center, but you guys, their care or their cognitive ability or their physical ability is now more than you can take care of. What does that look like with a family?
Yes, we just had to transition one of my dearest clients about 2 weeks ago. We went through this very scenario. And she was living at home and doing so well. She came to us through socialization for the last probably 4 or 5 years. And over the last few months, we just watched her cognitive ability decline drastically. Her adult children live out of state. And so we would just be in constant contact with her kids, letting her know our concerns. And then eventually, unfortunately, it just becomes so that they really need a higher level of care. So we called the primary caregiver, her daughter, which is out of state, but just really had a tough conversation with, I'd really encourage you to come down, spend the weekend with mom, really pay attention to some of these things that we're seeing. She's very unsteady on her feet. She's not talking nearly as much. She doesn't seem to enjoy the things she used to enjoy. And so she has done that, and then we've referred her to some nursing facilities and just a place that can get her more care than we can provide.
How did the family take those conversations from you?
It's not an easy conversation. That's not really something anybody wants to hear. But at the same time, when they came to us 4 or 5 years ago, this is the type of supervision they were really needing. In this instance, this particular client has in-home care service that comes 2 days a week as well and helps with bathing and cleaning and maintaining the household and such. And they were seeing some of the same things we were, so it wasn't just a one-sided conversation from our perspective. But it's never easy to hear, but I think we all want the best for their loved ones. So it was okay in the end.
Okay, Dr. O, so if you have a caregiver and a patient that you were seeing and you were seeing that decline, what kind of conversations did you have? Did you have family members ask you to help? What did that look like?
Well, of course, every case was different. And typically, the person did not want to cooperate, or the family didn't want to cooperate. Partly because they'd say, "I've called Dad every week and he sounds just fine." And you say, "Why don't you come and spend a week and tell me what you think?" Because that happens a lot. So when a spouse dies and everybody thinks the other one is mourning, which they may well be, but they're not functioning at a level that the family knew, they just write it off as mourning when in fact the spouse who died was covering for the one who was declining. So it's a complicated story, but in my family, it was hard. My 2 brothers, I have 3 siblings, 2 brothers are neurologists, so there's 3 of us in our family. And they would not believe me. They were neurologists and they would not believe me. It's like crazy.
Well, they were reverting back to your brothers and not neurologists at that point, then, correct?
Right, clearly. Yes.
Yeah, very good. So I have one last question for each of you. You guys have done a great job. Thank you very much. I so appreciate you. And we're going to open it up for questions. So make sure you've written down whatever questions you want to ask, but we're going to talk about that in just a second. There's one thing that you guys talked about that I wanted to just comment when you said it triggered this for me, and I want everybody to hear this. You said go spend a weekend with them. Okay. As a realtor, people tell me that, and it's been a realtor 10 years now, and I came from retail, so fourth quarter is always my busiest time. But when I joined in real estate, they said, "Oh, you're going to love it, Shannon, because November, December, and January are your slowest times." That's okay, good. I'll take that. I can tell you I've not had a slow November, December, or January. And it's because I get more phone calls from adult children in November, December, and January especially, because they have stayed and went and spent the weekend with their families and with their loved one. And they're not just talking to them on the phone because they're good kids. They're good children that they talk to their parents once a week, once a day. We're not leaving. Just the kids are gonna change classes, we're not, so we're gonna wait. So anyway, so that is a busy time, and it is because they spent the weekend with their parents, with their loved one, grandparents with their parents, whatever the case may be, so be aware of that, that's a big thing. Okay, so my last question, everybody. We've talked about different things. We've talked about how to stay safe in your home, different ideas, talking to your family, talking to your loved ones. So guys, what's one or two bottom line truths that everyone in this room needs to know about Alzheimer's, about dementia, and about those transitions that they may not have known and they just bottom line need to know?
Well, there are a lot of them, but as a clinician, I encourage people to go to a specialist for a diagnosis, because what I saw frequently was people would come to me with a diagnosis and it was wrong. In fact, I had one patient who had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and they were getting ready to put her in a nursing home. And I saw how many drugs she was on. I said, let's see if we can't get you off of some of these meds and see how you do then. So I figured she'd probably be improved. I talked to her psychiatrist. She was on a ton of psych meds. And her psychiatrist said, oh no, she needs all those meds. So we went and found another psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist worked with me and got her off of most of her meds. I saw her 3 months later and she was completely normal. So the diagnosis can be important, but you have to go to people who know something about it. Primary care sometimes does, but frequently doesn't. Neurologists don't always know what to do right. I get wrong diagnoses from neurologists because they can't spend the time to really understand. So I'd say diagnosis would be high on the list.
So you said not a neurologist, or primary care maybe, neurologist maybe. Who would you take your loved one to get diagnosed?
Oh boy, it's a tough question. There are not many providers out there who do this kind of treatment because it's not a money maker. So, which is why I was under constant pressure to get people in and out, which I said, you can't do that with these people. And so a lot of people who have been in this position have left the field. So it's tricky. So one of my students, former students, is seeing people with dementia and their families, and it's all these rave reviews. So that's one neurologist, but he's swamped. The other option I would suggest is the OU Memory Center. They get people in much more quickly than a specialist will. They can look at the whole person, the meds, their other health issues, and they do, I think, a reasonably good job there at diagnosing and managing people and helping people get through this. I hesitate to give you the name.
That's okay. No, you answered my question. So it's about asking questions, doing research, not just a neurologist, not just a primary care, but getting to know their clinical background and how they assess people, basically. Do your homework. Okay, very good. Okay.
Well, to piggyback on that, I kind of had that experience with my mother-in-law. So my advice is know what you're dealing with. There are some types of dementia that are reversible. That's the lucky kind. And so we can just assume when we see somebody having these struggles, whether it's with memory or skills or whatnot, that, oh my gosh, it's dementia. I mean, my mother-in-law, she was trying to, change the TV with her phone, and she was talking to the remote. This is a lady that just, had a wonderful career, traveled the world, spoke different languages, highly educated. Her mother lived to be 107. I mean, these people live forever. And I'm looking at my husband sometimes and I'm like, okay, it's all right. But I just thought, no, this can't be happening. So I got her to the doctor, and it was a UTI. So we can reverse right out of it. Got her on the right antibiotics, and there we go. No more dementia. Hallelujah. So don't assume that just because you're seeing these things, because I would have thought, oh my gosh, here we go. But it wasn't. And number two, what if I hadn't taken her to the doctor and if she was in her 90s at that time trying to recover from a UTI, and if I hadn't done that, I could have been in big trouble for trying to fight off that infection. So there are dementias that are reversible, so know what you're dealing with. Did that diagnosis so that you know what you're dealing with.
Very good. Okay, so what's a truth that everyone should know that they may not know, that they may not have walked in here knowing? What about you want to make sure they walk away with?
Okay, biggest statistic that scares everybody is that involves caregivers. We tend to not look at them as the victim in this, and they are. We lose, get this, 1 out of every 5 Alzheimer's family caregivers dies before the person they're taking care of. However, in the 12 years that I've been involved with the association, I have never seen us lose a caregiver who gets support. And that means a support group or educational programs, family support, whatever. They've got to have that support. Those 1 out of 5 are the ones that try to do this at home alone, and it's too stressful to do that. The other big issue is respite. You can keep your loved one at home in a lot of cases a lot longer if you can get Tiffany and get some support by taking your loved one into a daycare. And you never go in and tell them, I'm doing this for you, because they'll say, I don't want it.
I don't need it.
How you get them in there is tell them, I'm doing this for me, and they can't fight that. So that's important. You've got it, whether it's a day a week or whether it's 5 days a week or whatever, you have got to have some sort of help in getting through this. So that's my advice to every caregiver that I deal with.
Very good. Very good. Smart. Okay, Carla, what's your suggestion? What's the 1 to 2 truths that people need to know?
Well, when you are trying to make the decision to move your loved one into a memory care, the truth of the matter is we won't take care of them the way that you did at home. We just can't. It's just not going to happen. No one could take care of your loved one the way that you do. But we get really, really, really close. And if it helps you and it helps them, it's a win-win for both parties. So is it going to be perfect? Never. Nothing is ever perfect. But we take that load off of you as the caregiver. We give you that rest. We give you the opportunity to be the spouse again, or to be the child again, or to be, the loved one, or the good friend again, by letting the professionals take care of the stuff you don't want to do. We're not going to do it the way you do it at home. That's the truth. But we're going to get really, really close. We're going to do our very best to take care of both.
Very good. Okay, and that's a really good truth. That's honest. Okay, Tiffany, tell us the truth. What's the truth that everyone here needs to know?
My 1 piece of advice that I always try to pass along, we have touched on briefly, but just be as proactive as you possibly can as a caregiver. The more time you have, the more resources you can explore. There are so many different types of respite care out there. Of course, I'm a little partial to adult day services, but there are in-home services. There's all kinds of things. And the more you know, the more likely you are to find a fit that's great for your loved one and great for your family. And then, the sooner you can start implementing some of those things and some of those respite services into their lives, the less of a sense of rejection you'll get than if you wait until the crisis done. So I just think be as proactive as possible in these decisions.
So you guys are really preaching what we hear when we go on airplanes. And they tell you that when the oxygen mask comes down, you have to put it on yourself first before you put it on your loved one, because if you don't have the oxygen and you don't have what you need, you cannot take care of the person next to you. That's what you're saying. Okay, guys, we have 4 open. We're going to open up for questions. So who would like the question? Okay. Oh, Miss Martha, I know your question. I'm so excited you're going to ask it. So what is your question today?
Hello?
Okay.
it's more of an attachment to what's been stated about reaching out to your community. My husband and I are residents of an independent living in Canadian County, Spanish Cove, one of our educational partners, which we learned about a lot. It was our decision because of the fact that our parents, both of them, experienced Alzheimer's dementia. Carla, you had said, reach out and then make sure your community around you know these things are happening. But it wouldn't have worked for my mom and dad. They lived on 20 acres. And Johnny's dad was a widower. But we lived in our house, our forever house, for 20 years. And I knew 3 people around us. And to go and attach to our community, it wouldn't have happened. Too many involved with. So my suggestion is that as a resident of an independent senior living, they are the support also for those that are having symptoms, because you become family in that community as you get to know the residents. And that's where I come from, because even yesterday, I had the privilege or honor or whatever it would be called, but one of our residents came up, she's got memory issues. And yesterday was a bad day for her. But she saw me walk in the street and she was going, I need, and she got money. It was just, she needed a hug. And she couldn't remember my name at that time, but she just needed a hug. So that's an honor, because those people know you, and we can help also with the wandering.
Absolutely, and you're her neighborhood.
Yes.
You're her neighbor.
Yes.
You're the one that's, I mean, I understand your situation when you live on, too big of a place. But yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. We see that at Concordia a lot. That friends look after friends, and it's just precious. Thank you.
It expands your community in a different way. Okay, we've got our next question.
Could you give us some good websites and other research tools to expand our knowledge on the dementia part and the caregiving part?
I think all of us have something to say about that. Alz.org is the website for the Alzheimer's Association, and they try to keep up with what is out there that is working and what is out there that isn't working. And I will often refer people to the Alzheimer's Association website, but also aging services. Area-wide aging services can be of assistance. They're working on passing a law that will make counseling to help people with this part of the process. Some people do that, but it's not in the law yet.
If you go back to the Alzheimer's table, there's a bunch of brochures that will have some information on it where you can go to get the data on this. If you're a caregiver, or if you want to know information on this, we have 100 counselors stationed around the United States. And there's a number that you can get back there. It's on all of our cards and everything.
And it's actually at the top of your note page as well. So it's right there at the top.
But you can call them. They're available 24/7, and they're trained in this. They're educated in it. They've probably heard every question there is on this, or every concern there is. And that's a good resource. And my card's back there too. You can call me and I can give you some other information on it too.
Okay, very good question. Did you guys have any others that you wanted to add? No? Okay, good. Next question. Okay, Nikki. Oh, Nikki.
No, it's a good question, I promise. So I have a friend, and his wife had dementia. She has since passed, and he struggled with knowing when to take away the keys. And I'll be honest with you, she drove long past when her memory was failing, and his comment to me was, Well, Nikki, she's driven this route so many times that she knows exactly how to get to and from this place and that place, and so I'm not worried about her, and I have a tracker on her. And my question for you is, what are some of the concerns around that, and when is the right time?
Good question.
Oh, boy. So my research when I lived in Boston was about safe driving in older people and in people who had cognitive impairment. If people are having fender benders, that's a clue. If they get lost, that's a clue. If they can't handle normal things at home, like the remote or the microwave, if they can't handle that, they probably aren't going to be safe drivers. The next issue, of course, is how do you get the keys? And that is not an easy task. I would be the bad guy because the families didn't want to be the bad guy. So a lot of families will ask their physicians to help them with this. Some of them will and some of them won't, because I've had patients who I said were not safe to drive, and then I had dreams that they ran me over with their car.
So know that there's also ramifications for the loved one or the professional who has to tell you no, that they still feel it somewhere, because we have nightmares about it. Yes, go ahead.
And there are states out there that once you get diagnosed, your license is revoked. So you can't do it, which is probably the safest. Let me tell you this is an expensive enough disease without somebody getting into an accident and hurting somebody or killing somebody. So you have to take that into account. If you're gonna let them drive, you better be driving or riding with them to make sure that they understand what that traffic light means, which one of those is a brake and which one of them is an accelerator. So it's not an easy decision, but I've had 2 people in my early stage group that totaled their cars. Fortunately, they were single car accidents. And you look at them, this was early stage, and said, they should be able to handle this. Now, Terry will tell you that I'm not a good driver because I keep hitting curves. But that's, should she take my license?
Absolutely.
I've been saying that for years about my mother, but that's a whole nother conversation.
It's one of the toughest, I got into it in terms of research because it was one of the toughest conversations. It was easier to tell somebody they were going to die than that they would lose their driver privileges. But I wanted to disagree with you on something, and that is, once they have a diagnosis, in my opinion, that is not enough. Because, and maybe, if by the time the taxi driver can recognize that there's something wrong, that's probably the time, sure. But I make diagnoses very early. And I've had 2 patients who were declared incompetent based on the diagnosis. And I fought that because I said they are still able to make decisions. They're just, and so one of them I successfully fought, and the other one I couldn't reverse.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Well, she'd like me to ask it for her, so tell me if I get this right. But a POA, when is it important to put that in place, and at what point does that take effect, and what should we know about POAs when it comes to dementia?
Okay. And also, so I'm gonna let you guys answer, but also know we have great legal experts in the back with Roberto Sada's group that would also be able to help answer that in a little more detail. But I'll let you guys go through and answer how you'd like to respond.
Well, that's not the only document. We look on that one and say, okay, I get that one and I've got everything covered. Social Security will not accept that. If they want to have their own document, a lot of financial institutions will take that, but they want something beyond that. So having a POA is important, but it's not going to be the only answer you're going to find. You're going to have to go through a lot of rigmarole as you go through this, just to satisfy whatever groups that you're dealing with.
Well, you just don't want to find yourself caught up. You know, you don't want to. We had a woman that her husband had dementia. The house was in his name, the second marriage for both of them. The house was in his name. She needed to sell that house to pay for his care. She wasn't on the deed. She wasn't his BOA. she was stuck. So she had to get guardianship. I'm not a legal expert in what I hear. It takes a couple of things, a lot of money and a lot of time to get a guardianship, and all that could be avoided.
I'm
Power of
sorry,
attorney, I'm sorry. We didn't talk in acronyms, I'm sorry. Power of attorney. So that's a good reason to have a power of attorney in place, whoever your trusted loved one is, just so that they can make decisions on your behalf when you can't anymore. All of us need to have a POA. I mean, I could walk out there right now, I could fall off the stage and blow up my head. I want somebody I love making those decisions for who's gonna care for me, not stay but hold on. So, I'm in love.
Correct. Dr. O said it earlier, once you have a POA, make sure that person knows they are your POA and have that conversation with them.
I also, I just wanted to say that POAs only take effect when the person is incapacitated. So when you say, this is my power of attorney, usually it's for something specific like finances or health. And so you could say, this is my POA for finances, this is my POA for health. And that way, if you can't function, you've got those things covered. You know, yeah, you have to designate it. And, but the POA requires that you can't do it. People will do that when they're incapacitated temporarily, like
Yes.
surgery or going out of the country. They will give POA to somebody they trust. So it can be used in all kinds of ways.
Did that answer the question?
No, I just, see, I thank you for your patience with me, and it's a very key part of that question. When is it too late for a power of attorney?
Oh, when is it too late for a power of attorney?
And that might be something that we can have Roberta say to speak to afterwards. Sure, I'll put a stop.
Perfect. Okay, then we have one over here. Yes, Mr. Zen. Mr. Zen. Hold on, here comes your microphone.
Do you require a deposit for getting on the list?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question, and yes, we do. We ask for $1,000 deposit, but you never lose that deposit. It gives me permission to keep calling you. It tells me that you're highly interested. If you move into Concordia, we just apply it to the first month's rent. If you don't move into Concordia, I just give you the check back. I don't ever cash it until it's a done deal. So you don't lose that money. It just lets me know who's serious.
And that would be a question, that'd be a really good question for each community to visit, so that you know what the rules are, because they're different everywhere. They all have different standards. So if that is a good example, and it is a good question that do you have to put money down, and do they cash the check? Until you use it or not. Okay, we've got one more. We got time. This is going to be our last question right back here.
I think this falls under POA. I really highly resent designating family or friend. What are my alternatives?
Oh, that's a really good question. We have Arvis Bank back here. So you have, you can have a professional third party that will stand in your place as a POA. And they can tell you some other great resources in the back. That's what they do. That's their specialty. I can tell you that's a really good question to think about. That if it is your friend, a family member, who is the backup, all of those things, we all have family dynamics. It is just inevitable. And we can have like 5 different panels in 5 days of going on about that. So I understand the question. They would be a really good resource for you to be able to look at some professionals, and that is a good conversation. Okay, very good. Okay, so actually, we have a question, one more. Oh, right back here, I've got one.
I was wondering about the POA in terminology of how long. If it's for finances, how long does that last? If it's for medical, how long it lasts? I wasn't aware that there are different POAs. I thought it was, once you got it, it was good as gold.
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm going to tell you that POAs, there are different kinds. They have different values, and you need to have a really good conversation with our attorneys in the back, because it's very specific, and it can come and go, and he's going to answer those questions much better than I could. And we actually, guys, the POAs is a good segue with what we're doing up here, because it's the next step. Our focus today was that transition, and part of that transition is planning the legal aspect of for yourself and your loved one. POAs, wills, trusts, all of that is combined. If you have missed any of these conversations, and we just had one a few months ago about wills, trusts, you can go on to our YouTube channel and you can see the past seminars, and that would be a really good resource for you to check as well. Some of those would be answered. So please utilize those, and when you have a friend, a family member that may have missed one of these and you think, oh, I need to subtly tell them they need this, the YouTube channel is a really good way for them to watch old videos or previous previous panels. Oh, that would be a really good question. What's the name of the channel?
It's the Senior Living Truth
That
Series.
makes perfectly good
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and we will make sure that that's in the follow-up information as well.
Okay, so guys, did they do a good job today? How do you want to make